If you went to the founders as an originalist and said, would this qualify as an invasion with millions of people coming into the border and the number of deaths by drugs, the number of terrorists coming in, they would say, yes, this constitutes an invasion. It's under that umbrella. But again, it's going to be the Supreme Court that will tell us. In my opinion, it is an invasion. This governor has the right to do what he's doing. I wish he would have done it a year ago.
Biden's senile and his open border policy is illegal. What are they going to try to say? Make an excuse for him? Like, oh, well, we can't blame him for letting in terrorists because basically, guess what, guys? Whoever voted for Biden just basically voted for a senile, recluse puppet that is being moved around by President Obama and God only knows who else. Well, maybe Xi Jinping, maybe a little bit of Vladimir Putin. I don't know. But he certainly has made a complete mess of our country. And I don't know if there's any recourse for that, because I literally believe that the law only works against us. Right? Like if we break the law or something, okay, then of course the law will either give us justice or put us in jail. But when it comes to the government, they're basically allowed to do whatever they want. The executive branch, has full-blown immunity, it seems. They can do whatever they want. So the border's wide open. The administration is failing to execute its constitutional duty to defend the borders of our country. President Biden is being just basically, basically allowed to run our nation from the Oval Office with apparent senile and age-related dementia, which is, by the way, not just me making that up, even though we had talked about this in the past quite often here at the show, at the Sara Carter Show. But basically, medical contributors and people who work closely with the president are admitting that he has serious, serious problems, according to documents that were leaked in court. And guess what? We're stuck with it. We're stuck with it. I have a lawyer on today, somebody who I have the utmost respect for, a JAG lawyer, Lieutenant Colonel Jeff Addicott, that's going to go through that and so much more. Don't you want to know what your recourse is if Biden, the senile president, allowed terrorists into our country with his open border policy, and let's say it blows up one of our malls and your children are there, my children are there, I'm there, you're there, a husband, a wife? Do you have any recourse? Anything? Anything? Or is our government just allowed to do whatever it wants? Do we have any recourse that our bureaucracy and people working inside our bureaucracy are interfering with an election by targeting President Donald Trump over and over and over again, despite the fact that he more than likely, I would guarantee 99.9%, I don't always like to say 100%, will be the candidate for the Republican Party? But it doesn't matter, they're interfering. Do you see what I mean? It's as if Washington, D.C. figured out that their bubble, that they could do whatever they want, that they could weaponize the DOJ, weaponize our system, weaponize the border against the American people, and we just got to sit back and take it. We got to sit back and take it. I say, no, we don't. No, we don't. Biden has destroyed our immigration, asylum, border security, customs, everything. And the feds are shirking at their responsibility. And then Governor Greg Abbott jumps in and he says, screw you. I am going to take care of the state of Texas and let's have it. Let's get it on right now. What are you going to do about it? This is my state. These are my constituents too, and I have a right to protect them. And that's why the National Guard's putting up even more concertina wire every single day. And that's why the federal government hasn't forced the Border Patrol to cut down that concertina wire. And that's why they haven't federalized the National Guard yet, because it would be a disaster. We're going to talk about the legalities of this, what we can do, what will happen when President Trump, if that happens, gets elected. Will he be able to deport all these illegals? You don't want to miss this. You do not want to miss this episode, because we are going to give you free legal advice that is going to help you understand the border, your role as an American citizen in protecting our nation, because yes, you have the most vital role of all, and why these jerks in Washington, D.C. better listen to you. Better listen to you. And what is your recourse in the end? Folks, you don't want to miss this with lawyer Jeff Addicott. He's here to break down this discrepancy and so much more and explain why Texas has the right and what a constitutional border policy looks like. And if or not President Biden should have been charged with holding on to classified information in his garage, despite the fact that the Dems now say he is senile. And by the way, just a little quick aside, the reason they're saying that is because they want to replace him with somebody else. They wouldn't leak those documents unless that is what they were going to do. But first, let's go to MyPillow and Mike Lindell. And I want to thank all of MyPillow employees for being so wonderful and for sponsoring the Sara Carter Show. Thank you, Mike Lindell. Thank you for MyPillow too. I love sleeping with MyPillow. It helps me get a restful night's sleep. I also have the mattress topper on my guest bedroom's mattress because it was a little older, and that mattress topper makes the most difference in the world. People love it. They love sleeping in that guest room when they come over to visit me. And my dogs especially love the MyPillow pet pillows. In fact, Macy's sleeping on hers right below my desk. So thank you so much for making such a great product, Mike Lindell, and for having such a great American company. And I want all of you to celebrate with me, right? Because right now you can get MyPillow's best prices ever and free shipping on your entire order, including 50% off MyPillow 2.0, 50% off brand new flannel sheets. I want you to take advantage of the free shipping on the larger items, such as the mattresses and the mattress topper that I just talked about. It's amazing. 100% made in the USA for as low as $99.99. You won't beat that. Visit mypillow.com/Carter, CARTER, and enter code Carter, CARTER at checkout for free shipping and huge discounts, including the Giza Dream bed sheets for as low as $29.98. Go to mypillow.com/Carter, CARTER, code Carter, CARTER, mypillow.com/Carter, code Carter, or call 1-800-685-7221. Very happy to have Jeffrey Addicott on the Sara Carter Show today. Jeff, you're a full-time professor of law and the director of the Warrior Defense Project at St. Mary's University School of Law. I brag about you all the time. And when I tell people about you, they're like, that is so amazing. That's like a part of law that I want to study. I was just actually talking to someone in the military right now who's thinking about this and who's thinking about going into particular kind of law. Tell everybody a little bit about what you do at St. Mary's University and how that figures into like our present day crisis, especially when we're thinking about the border and border security.
Yeah, so I did 20 years in the military. I was the senior legal advisor to all the Green Berets. So I've kind of done a lot of terrorism, operational law in the real world. I retired just before 9/11 in 2000 and came here to St. Mary's University School of Law. I founded the Center for Terrorism Law, and ran that for about 15 years until President Trump kind of, when he destroyed ISIS, radical Islamic extremists kind of went back in their hole. So I'd been on the side defending soldiers that were wrongfully accused of misconduct, and I've been doing that for about 15 years. So now I'm doing full-time. I switched the name of the center to the Warrior Defense Project. And I'm dedicated, besides teaching as a law professor, defend soldiers wrongfully accused of misconduct in the performance of their duties. So I kind of screen a lot of cases that, a lot of people will call me, and I have the luxury, because I don't charge any money, of taking cases that I feel are a just cause. The military justice system works about 98% of the time, but there's that perfect storm when people are caught in situations and the system fails, and then I step in, and our success rate is about 99.9% over 15 years. I've done about 150 cases.
I know, it's amazing. And a lot of those cases, off and on, I've been involved in with you just because they're phenomenal stories. And we've been able to get those stories out and draw attention to the injustice that these troops are suffering based either on I don't know, either things that happened within their leadership or charges that were brought against them that were erroneous charges against them while they were serving overseas in the war zones and those battlefields that so many of our young men and women have, given so much for, either their lives or they've lost limbs or they've been, wounded. But you really have been like the archangel. I always think of you like the archangel Michael or something. Like you swoop in, but instead of like just the big sword, you're like coming in with the pen and paper and then, the law in one hand. And for many of these troops, it's incredible. I mean, they have broken down. I've experienced it personally myself. You have helped people in my family. And I'm so grateful for that. But for many of these young men and women you've helped, they literally feel as though they owe you everything because they had no one to advocate for them, no one to stand up for them. That's pretty incredible work that you do.
Yeah, it is. And like you, I mean, what motivates me is God and country. Again, we don't charge. And so we're very happy at our Warrior Defense Project. I'm backed by a number of second and third year law students. So they get a lot of real world experience in doing cases. So there's a benefit to our law school. There's a benefit to the soldiers. And so it's just the right thing to do. And I'm very pleased. As long as the good Lord's got me here in cowboy boots, I'll continue to do with that.
Yeah, one of the men that I remember was Lieutenant Joshua Waddell, and I met his family. That was in 2011 when he came to you, and it was the first case that you dealt with regarding rules of engagement. And actually, that was one of the biggest stories I broke while I was in Afghanistan, were these crazy Karzai 12 rules of engagement that allowed the Afghan government to basically dictate what our soldiers were capable of doing on a battlefield. And then not only was the Afghan government tying the hands of our soldiers because we allowed them to, it was basically our rules of engagement that, I mean, our leadership, our military leadership was using to hamstring our soldiers, our troops as well. It was crazy.
Yeah, it was. It was, the president at the time, President Obama, had rules of engagement that basically tied our soldiers' hands behind their back and then go out and fight them. Direct contrast to President Trump. When he took out ISIS, he abrogated, he got rid of the rules of engagement. He kept the law of war because you can never get rid of that. But that's what the military is trained to do. You engage the enemy, right. You defeat the enemy. In our current administration, it's like, if your spouse comes to you and says, "Hey, honey, there's a bee nest in the backyard there where the kids are playing. Can you take care of that?" And then, she would come back 20 minutes later. I'm sitting there with a BB gun in one hand and looking at cat videos on the other. She would say, "Are you an idiot?
Right.
Destroy the bee nest."
Right. But they weren't able to do that a lot of times. And many times they just had to be sitting ducks. And I'd been in situations like that before. And we're going to jump into that on the border in a minute. But basically sitting ducks where we'd be in, combat outposts in Zabul province and Helmand province and, Eastern Afghanistan. Didn't matter where we were at in Northern Afghanistan. And the troops, as well as the journalists who were embedded there, or just me, would be fired on. And I would say, why aren't we responding? Why aren't we targeting the terrorists and the Taliban? We're just sitting in a bunker hoping that we're not going to be randomly hit. And they would say, well, we can't. And I would say, why? Well, because there might be people in the village where they're shooting from. And I'm like, so basically it's okay for our troops to die and for us to be wounded and maimed, but we can't fight back. I'm like, what kind of war is this? And we're seeing that now on the border. And I want to make that perfectly clear. I'm out there and I talk to the National Guardsmen and women who are out on the front lines there, and their hands are tied. They're basically just sitting there. Now, not so bad under Governor Greg Abbott, and his direction, I think, is extraordinary. I'm going to ask you about the legalese of that. But I was out there when the National Guard and the borders wide open was basically just come on in. Let's make sure no one drowns. A National Guardsman lost his life trying to save a couple of people that ended up being drug runners. They didn't die. He did. And then, our guardsmen were basically just bringing boats in. And I would say, what's going on here? This is crazy. Not only is the Border Patrol bringing people into the country, but now they're having our National Guard, literally be the welcoming committee for illegal migrants, illegal aliens who could possibly, many connected to terrorism and criminal networks. I mean, why is this so upside down, Jeff? What's going on here?
Lack of leadership. I mean, the recent border bill that everybody was talking about was an immigration bill. It wasn't a secure the border bill. And, again, just to use an analogy, if you're at home and the bathtub is running and it's overflowing, what's the first thing you do? I mean, you don't get out the mop and start mopping the floor. You turn the water off. And that's what the executive should do. That's what the executive has the power to do. And this particular president will not do it. In fact, he's opened up another spigot and put a hose into the tub to put more water into the tub so it'll overflow even more. And that's a very good analogy.
It is a great analogy. And it brings up the question, right? It begs the question. It's as if the enemy is inside our country, inside our government. How is it possible that our own executive branch is basically perpetrating and aiding and abetting this criminal act of destroying our sovereignty, destroying our border? What other explanation is there? This is their policy.
It is. I mean, this administration is basically overwhelmed with individuals that believe in open borders. They're internationalists. They're not America First type people. They believe that this country needs to be open wide up to allow everybody in the world to come here that wants to come here. That's their worldview, and they're in positions of power. And how it happened? Well, they were elected, and that's what this individual told us he was going to do. So we shouldn't be surprised when he was campaigning, I'm going to open the border.
And he did so in a huge way. Let's get to the law, because this is your expertise. Governor Greg Abbott claims he has the legal authority to continue the construction of barriers. I love Governor Abbott. I love what he's doing right now. So I'm just full disclaimer, but construction of barriers and wires along the southern border, and that the federal government should not be able to do anything about it right now because they're not doing their job. Is Abbott right?
Well, the Supreme Court will tell us who's right. In my legal opinion, as a law professor, having taught constitutional law, I would say yes, because the clause he's looking at is, again, we are being invaded. Now that you can find that language in the Constitution, and obviously the founders didn't envision. They envisioned a military invasion, probably, but if you went to the founders as an originalist and said, would this qualify as an invasion with millions of people coming into the border and the number of deaths by drugs, the number of terrorists coming in? They would say, yes, this constitutes an invasion. It's under that umbrella. But again, it's going to be the Supreme Court that will tell us. In my opinion, it is an invasion. This governor has the right to do what he's doing. I wish he would have done it a year ago. But, the best time to plant an oak tree is today and 10 years ago. So yes, he's pushing back, and the Biden administration, of course, gave him several ultimatums, and the Biden administration blinked, because our position, the last Supreme Court ruling, did not say we had to take those barriers down, the wires. It just said that if they want to cut the wire, you have to let them cut it. And Governor Abbott, bless his soul, said, okay, you cut it. I'm going to put twice as much wire after you cut it. And that's the right attitude. This governor has the right, the obligation to protect Texas from an invasion, and we are being invaded by millions of illegal aliens across our border. They're not vetted, and it's the darndest thing I've ever seen. I think most Americans are scratching their heads. And just to give a plug, we're doing a border conference in Rosenberg, Texas, on the 2nd of March. Yeah, so we're kind of bringing all that issue, to a subject matter expert group of individuals that have expertise in this area to talk about it.
Let me ask you this, isn't it? And I'm excited about your this event you're going to be holding, because so many Americans, I'm traveling all across the country. I just got back from Denver. I couldn't even believe what I was hearing and what I was seeing in Denver. I mean, every time I go to another city, and usually it's a blue city, that's a sanctuary city, where people all thought at one point, like, Come on. Every human is a right to cross any border they want and do whatever they want. And all of a sudden, when it shows up on their doorstep, everybody's like, well, wait a minute. They don't have jobs. They're being they're overpopulated in very limited housing. It's becoming a problem in the city. We don't have the resources, all of the major problems that you see with crime and everything else. And all of a sudden, people inside the community are like, whoa, wait a minute. We didn't understand the magnitude of this until they landed in our doorstep. Something is very, very wrong. But isn't it the job of the executive branch, of the president of these United States, because these are United States, and each one of these states has the right to their own direction in a way, but isn't it the job of the president to protect us, to ensure that our nation is protected and that the people are protected? And if he's not doing that, then the states have to do it.
Exactly. I mean, his job is to follow the law. Again, the law is already on the books. The president has the authority to stop this invasion tomorrow. And I'm going to use that term because, again, millions of people, the gotaways and the illegal, I guess the term now is immigrants. But yes, no one's above the law is the chant that this administration often says. Well, I'd like to hold your feet to the fire on that. Yeah, no one's above the law. So we're all for legal immigration. But a country without a border is not a country. And we are losing our country literally to individuals that are not vetted again. And I fully expect it's not a question of if it's going to occur. It's a question of when. There's no doubt in my mind that radical Islamic extremists have come across our border
Absolutely.
in large numbers, and we will suffer a major attack on the homeland real soon.
I absolutely believe that. Has there ever been a situation like this in American history, an invasion like this, where the federal government has refused to do its job? Is there any historical reference to this that we can pull from?
No, I can't think of anything unless you go back to the American Civil War and draw some analogies. But no, this is outrageous. And again, it's not just us saying this. This is the FBI director. He says all the red lights are flashing.
Right.
And, in terms of radical Islamic extremists, and that's the number one terror threat. And right now, they're very agitated, of course, because of what's happening in the Middle East. And again, it's going to happen. And the number of terrorists that have come across are unknown, because if you're a terrorist, you're not going to turn yourself in.
Right.
You're going to find ways to get into the country. And, we've stopped almost 200 now on the terror watch list. But it's, that's the president's obligation.
Let me ask you this, though. Isn't it a dereliction of duty? Look, so you and I, let's go back to this, because you and I have an expertise. You particularly have an expertise. I was running around in countries all the time, like you were, where terrorists, and terror hubs and terror training camps existed. I was in Pakistan. I was in Afghanistan, Iraq. I was up near, Syria in Sinjar when Islamic State was in full swing. And I was out there. We know that this is a reality. We know that terrorists have looked and eyed our southern border and have said, from Al-Qaeda to Islamic State, and said, you know what, that's a great way in. But isn't it a dereliction of duty on the president to just leave it wide open, to have no real resources to properly vet all these people? We know they're not being vetted. I talk to people all the time. So what happens if a bomb goes off? Who's going to pay the price? Jeff, as a lawyer, who's going to pay the price if the president's policy was to let the terrorists in?
Well, politics plays a big part in this. So, the Democrat Party impeached President Trump over a phone call. So, yes, I believe this is an impeachable offense. But again, I'm not a member of Congress, and the Democrat Party controls the Senate. And so even if he is impeached in the House for dereliction of duty, then, it's not going to go anywhere. So ultimately, it's going to be, if you have a police chief in your, local city that's not doing their job, well, you vote them out. And I think we have a commander in chief that is not doing his job, that he's sworn to protect the United States of America and the Constitution. And part of that obligation, of course, in the Constitution is provided for the general defense. And if you're not going to do it, then states have to take it on their own to do it. And that's what Texas is doing. And other states are supporting Texas because that's an open border. And the governor is doing everything within his power to take up the slack from what the federal government is refusing to do. How do you get President Biden to do his job, basically, is your question. I don't think you can. I think it's going to take an election that we're going to have a new commander in chief. And I don't care if it's a Democrat or Republican, but do your job.
Right.
The law is on the books.
Well, this is so insane because, yes, you're absolutely right. Do your job. The law is on the books and you're 100% right. But if you and I opened this, let's say we decide to run a business and we open that business and allow terrorists, arms dealers, drug dealers, human traffickers to all operate in our business. And we know that they are doing that. We are liable if people become endangered, if all of a sudden children are kidnapped and used in a trafficking ring, or if a bomb goes off because we decided to do business with a terrorist. Or, for example, as recently as just this past week when the news broke that Chinese nationals were arrested by Border Patrol agents, at the Indio station in California, they had 25, I believe, fraudulent Pennsylvania driver's license, which is highly suspicious, and a trove of gift cards, which, by the way, what if these are spies? Russian spies, Soviet spies would come in and ride bicycles around New York City delivering, packages to buildings just so that they could gain access to offices. So we don't even know if we're importing spies. So again, the question is, could I personally sue everybody in the Biden administration if a bomb goes off at the mall and my children die or somebody or I get maimed? What can I do for recourse if I know they're the ones breaking the law?
They would have to allow you to sue them, sovereign immunity. So we've had a lot of parents, their loved ones are killed by drunk drivers that are here illegally. Some of them have been arrested 2 or 3 times for drunk driving, and they simply release them back into the American public to do more harm. Drug dealers have tortured and killed Americans. So, yeah, they'd have to waive their sovereign immunity, which they're not going to do.
So there's no way around this, basically, because I get asked this question all the time. That's why I asked you. So there's no way around this.
Ultimately, we, in a democracy, we elect individuals to enforce, the law in the executive branch. If that person's not doing their job, we have the right and the obligation to, vote for someone else that will do the job. And that's going to be the solution here, is to find a new commander in chief that will enforce the law and secure the border. And people say, well, it can't be done. President Trump did it under extreme pressure from a Democrat party that he did not control the last 2 years. They fought him tooth and nail for every penny in terms of trying to build the wall. And they resisted everything he did, remain in Mexico, and yet he was able to do it anyway. So the commander-in-chief has vast authority to do these types of things if they want to do them. And so we have an administration that selectively enforces the law. They enforce laws they like. They don't enforce laws they don't like, I suppose.
Well, but the thing is, and this is what's really just, I think people are waking up to the law. And this is why what you do is so important, because we've gone through the weaponization of the government. We saw that we're seeing it now, where they're targeting President Trump on these classified documents, yet Joe Biden, they're making excuses for him. They're saying, okay, he's so far gone that we can't even charge him with having classified documents all over his garage. A guy who, by the way, whose son was doing cocaine off the backs of hookers and, flying his plane all over China and double dealing with our adversaries. We can't charge him because he's an old man and people are going to feel sorry for him when he gets up there because they're going to say he's crazy. But yet he can be the president of the United States. However, we're going to do that to President Trump and interfere in the election. It makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah, the report issued by the special counsel made no sense to me as a law professor. because he found that he intentionally kept those documents. He knew what he was doing.
Right.
He shared classified information with a ghostwriter. So that was when he was lucid, because this has been going on for 30 years.
Bingo.
So if he's no longer lucid now is irrelevant. That might go to the sentencing portion of the trial, but it has nothing to do with the fact that you committed the crime at the time. You knew what you were doing, and the report said he knew what he was doing at the time that he did it. So the fact that he is, in their opinion, not up to standing for a trial because the jury might be sympathetic, that's not the job of the prosecutor to worry about, well, a jury might be sympathetic, I'm not going to bring these charges. No, is there enough evidence to believe that you violated the law? The answer is yes, as indicated in the report.
General Petraeus paid the price when he shared his notes with his, at that time with his lover. That was also that. But by the way, Erin also had a top secret security clearance, which was interesting. I mean, but he shared it with her. She used it for a book. Let me ask you this, because this is what is deeply concerning, and I know you've got to be thinking it. They haven't even fully investigated what Biden did with those documents. He was dealing with China. His family had long ties with China economic. We know they've received over $30 million into the family coffers, with whether that was his son or his brother or somebody else or Mr. 10% himself. I mean, so how do we know that when Biden was in the Senate and he had access to classified information, that he wasn't just selling or trading that information to our adversaries?
Yeah, I mean, we don't. And we know that Hunter Biden, of course, as you indicated, was doing these business deals all around the world with countries that are not friendly to us. He had access to the garage. He had access to the home. And we've seen the photographs of how these files were kept. There was no security whatsoever for these things. But again, I think, most Americans that really don't get that deeply into the reports, what they see is Biden had classified information, no charges. Trump has classified information. We're going to charge him with everything.
Election interference?
Yeah.
Is it election interference?
Well, I would say on its face, it appears to be a dual standard of justice. Right. And the fact that we're in an election this year, I think you can draw that conclusion and not be too far off the mark. But people, again, whether you like Trump or not, I think they see the hypocrisy here and the double standard.
This administration wants you taxed to the brink, under the thumb of the IRS, and controlled with a digital dollar. That's why thousands of hardworking, patriotic Americans, including myself, are turning to Goldco. And here's our current offer. Get a free 2024 Gold Kit. Learn how to possibly get $10,000 in bonus silver as a listener of this show. How amazing is that? They've helped people like you and me place over $3.5 billion in gold and silver. One of Goldco's most unique qualities is its education first stance and thoroughness of the information that it provides. I'm telling you, you're not going to beat this anywhere. It offers a one-of-a-kind gold IRA kit for individual buyers to explain the economy and how IRAs, particularly gold IRAs, work. Their goal is to make it easy for you to get the benefit of owning physical gold or silver. And how important is that in this day and age when you just can't trust the volatility of the market? Protect your family's financial future and freedom. Get started today at Sara, S-A-R-A, likesgold.com. That's SaraLikesGold.com. Get your free gold kit from Goldco and learn how to get $10,000 in bonus silver. Sara, S-A-R-A, likesgold.com. That's SARA, likesgold.com. What would your advice be to President Trump? I think he's a phenomenal person. I know him and I've interviewed him, and of course, nobody's perfect, but he was the only president that I've, actually reported under that actually did what they said they were going to do. I mean, not even George Bush went as far as what needed to be done on the border. I mean, President Trump did everything in his possible, arsenal as a president to shut it down with his executive orders. And he was fighting tooth and nail against a Congress that did not want to cooperate. What would your advice be to him?
Well, again, I like that movie, My Cousin Vinny. New Yorkers are a whole special, different type of people because they have inflection in their voices. I just tell people, listen to Trump with your eyes and you'll be all right.
Right.
What has he done? And that's what that's what you're pointing out. But again, just to play the devil's advocate, President Biden has kept his promises. I will open the border. I'll destroy the energy industry in this country. So it's the American people that have to say, okay, well, what type of country do we really want to have? I want to have a country that has a secure border. I want to pay $2 a gallon on my gas. I don't care about the climate extremists, because after we saw what happened with COVID-19, and if there's just no dissent. You can't have any scientist that will say that it's all a bunch of hooey. They'll never make any airtime. And yet, if you search for those voices, you'll see that, this crisis is basically phony. But again, it just, both presidents have kept their word pretty much.
I mean, if you could talk to Trump, I mean, would there be any advice you would give him as a lawyer? I mean, because of all this weaponization of the system against him?
I would just basically, do what you're doing. But I would, when your opponent is, mired in the mud here, I would just let them stew in their own mud. I mean, people kind of have figured this out already. So I think probably it's a good time to just smile and keep your cards close to the vest and keep reminding people what this country was like when you were the president.
Right.
And you'll win over those people that, that say, well, I don't like his personality, et cetera, et cetera. But they see when they go to the gas tank, when they go to the grocery stores, they see and they know. And I think when they have to make a choice between President Biden and President Trump, that's not a hard math problem for most Americans, I would believe.
I don't think so either. I think we're going to see sweeping wins. I mean, I just don't see how we wouldn't unless something else was going on, because I'm traveling the whole country and there is not one person. I've not even interviewed, well, maybe one or two here or there, but almost overwhelming, whether they're independents, Democrats, believe it or not, and certainly Republicans, are not going to be voting for President Biden. I can tell you that, at least from the random sampling I've been doing. Before I let you go, I do want to ask you something. What do you think the best way to solve the asylum hearing backlog would be? Because it's always been an issue. Now we've got, 6 years ahead. I mean, is it even realistic? And I know people that want to send people home. Like if Trump comes back into office, we're going to have the biggest deportation ever. I mean, is that one? Can we do that? Is it legally possible? Is it feasible? And 3, how do we fix that backlog?
Well, I think you have to have a combination of all the above. And in the words of President Obama, yes, we can. Hope and change. Yes, they came here. They can go back. They can remain in Mexico. We can follow international law in terms of people that want asylum. We can hire judges and beef that factor up. And we can do these things. And it's going to take some cooperation from hopefully a Republican-controlled Congress and Senate and a Republican in the White House. Again, if we had Democrats that were saying secure the border, I think people would listen to what they had to say. But we don't have any Democrats other than Kennedy that's saying those types of things. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be a mess. It's going to take a lot of effort, but it can be done. And I think many people agree that you have to wait in line for your term, follow the law. And we know that at least 90% of the people that claim asylum, well over 90%, they don't have a basis for asylum. They just know to say the magic word. So yes, it's a big problem. But again, I believe that President Trump has demonstrated from his past performance that he can solve the problem. The current administration has demonstrated that they don't want to solve the problem. So again, our border conference on the 2nd of March is going to be in Rosenberg, Texas. It's free. We provide lunch. We've got Todd Benson. We've got, Ted Cruz is going to be providing remarks. It's going to be a fabulous event, free. You simply have to, send us an email letting us know that you're coming. But I think y'all can probably put that up on your website, right? The brochure.
Absolutely. I'm going to take care of that. I'm going to make sure everybody out who's listening to this, if you all are interested in going, I will have it at my website at saracarter.com. That is SARA Carter.com. Go to my website. There'll be a link to that with the story, with this podcast, because I think, and especially I think it's great, Senator Ted Cruz is going to be there, and especially Todd Bensman. He's done such incredible investigative work in this area. And I have him many times on the show, and I have him as well in our Dark Wars podcast series, which I'm really excited about. I mean, he's really blown the lid wide open on the NGOs and what they've been doing as far as like supplying and funneling money so that illegals can be moved into our country. I don't know how to thank you, Jeff. You're amazing. You are, again, say it one more time so everybody knows when the event is going to take place and where.
It's Texas Independence Day, March the 2nd, Saturday, at the Rosenberg Civic Center, a wonderful facility. And we will provide lunch. There's free parking. You simply have to, register for the event. You get that information through your website. And we'd love to see you come out. And again, we've got subject matter experts. Jim Conway is going to be there, just an absolute brilliant former FBI agent that's dealt with this stuff all his life. So a lot of heavy hitters, and we try to screen to get the best of the best to come speak, inform the public. So when you, when you are asked, about these issues, you'll be ready to answer.
Yep. Thank you so much, Jeff. Again, thank you for being such a great patriot, and thank you for the amazing work you've done for our troops and all of the great work you've done to just help save and salvage our war heroes and our great patriots that are just like you. Hope you come back on the show again soon. And I will be there March 2nd if I can make it. If I'm not flying somewhere else in the country, I promise you I will find my way to Rosenberg, Texas.
If you're coming, you're speaking. We're going to put you on the agenda.
Put me on the spot.
Thanks for having me.
Anytime. Please make sure you subscribe to the Sara Carter Show on your favorite podcast app. It helps us keep the show free and really gives us a boost in our algorithm. I love reading all your reviews as well. If you are watching on Rumble and YouTube, give us a like and a follow as well. Thank you. Follow me on Truth at Sara Carter Official, on X at Sara Carter DC, and on Instagram at SCarterDC. God bless you. God bless our nation's troops. God bless our nation. And God bless the great state of Texas.